I think there's something thrilling about cult bands. Like, it feels like they're your secret. Like, you're the only one who's listening. Even though, in reality, there are millions who are just like you. Today on the show, how Cigarettes After Sex became the biggest cult band around right now and started selling out arenas. I'm Alamin Abdul Mahmoud. This is Commotion. Okay, maybe let's begin by having you sitting back and sinking into your comfiest chair to the sound of this.
Film in hell, the copters crashing in the ocean from way above. Got the music in your baby, tell me what. Got the music in your baby, tell me what.
From 2017, that song is called Apocalypse from the band Cigarettes After Sex. This song that you're listening to has been streamed more than 1.3 billion times on Spotify. That's more than Hotline Bling by Drake. That's more than Poker Face by Lady Gaga. That's more than Dancing Queen by ABBA. And this is not some fluke. Cigarettes After Sex have a bunch of other songs over the 500 million stream mark. But here's the weird thing. The music of Cigarettes After Sex is like the antithesis of a typical sort of big pop sound. It's all slow and moody and atmospheric. But it turns out that is a vibe that a lot of people, particularly Gen Z, seem to want right now. Cigarettes After Sex has put out their third album. It's called X's. Next month, they're going to be launching a global arena tour. That sound you just heard, filling out an arena tour. Somehow, how is this going to happen? I don't know. How is a quiet, shadowy band going to do this? How is a quiet, shadowy band become so massive? Suzy, Exposito, and Reanna Cruz are here. They've got their theories. Suzy, Reanna, welcome back to the show, friends.
Happy to be here.
Are you guys mellow? Are you guys vibing out? We're going to be, it's an atmospheric chat. That's the plan.
Yes, I'm so vibing right now.
Well, let's get into it. Let's begin to, because I'm interested in the sort of enigmatic nature of this band. Cigarettes After Sex are very enigmatic. They're not the sort of band cataloging their every move on social media. Reanna, what do we know about them?
Yeah, so there was a recent GQ profile of the band, and before that, I had known absolutely nothing.
You're like, a band exists. I don't know anything about them. Yeah.
Yeah, like I've listened to them every now and again. You know, they've been put on playlists for me, like, sure, whatever.
Oh.
But I know nothing about this band that kind of sprouted out of nowhere, but I know that they're from Texas, and it's pretty much just one dude, Greg Gonzalez, alongside two other members. And their music is essentially what we just heard on Apocalypse. They make moody, shoegazy, like pedal-heavy, reverb-laden vibes, and that's the best way I could really put it, is that their music is just like capital V simple vibes.
Capital V simple vibes. I love that description. That's exactly every single Cigarettes After Sex song that I can think of. By the way, Reanna, both Suzy and I clocked that they've been put on playlists for me, and we're not going to come back to that later. But I just thought, we caught that. We caught that flex. That's all I'm saying is we caught that flex.
I know. I was around in college.
Suzy, how did Cigarettes After Sex first get on your radar?
Tumblr. Everything.
Go on.
Yeah, you know, I'm an ex-Tumblrina.
Yeah, I see that about you.
Everything. Yeah, you can see that. Yeah, like everything on Tumblr, it was about mood boarding and creating a vibe. Like what would be the soundtrack to your life? Mm-hmm. We romanticized the hell out of everything on Tumblr. That was just like a prerequisite of being there. So and curating a vibe.
Yeah.
So my Tumblr back in the day was really focused on anything alternative made by people of color. And Greg Gonzalez, I don't know where he falls on that, but he is, a Mexican-American guy from El Paso.
Yeah.
And so at first I was very dismissive because it's very sonically agnostic. And I, especially like 10 years ago, was punker than thou.
Yeah.
So, but the thing about Cigarettes After Sex is it's really, like Greg Gonzalez is the, he's like a descendant of another Mexican American icon, Hope Sandoval, lead singer of Mazzy Star. I feel like she was, you know, one of the most influential vocalists for him. And he's got the same breathy inflection, the enunciations, and his music had that same dream pop vibe that was having a resurgence on Tumblr in the early 2010s. So if you were already like a crate digger at that time, like I was, the appeal of Cigarettes After Sex was beyond just, you know, mood music. It reflected a lot of that DIY, like indie pop movement dating back to bands like the Pastels, Black Tambourine, even Belle and Sebastian. And so the whole vibe was about nostalgia, and it was so appropriate for the era.
If Tumblr's, you know, Tumblr's nothing else, or the Tumblr era is nothing else than like sort of if you know, you know sort of situation, you know, and that you can absolutely ride that wave all the way into, I guess, medium fame. What's surprising is like the level of fame they've arrived at now. I guess maybe fame is not quite the word for it, but you've referenced a few sort of reference points. Cigarettes After Sex have. This is a Canadian podcast based out of Toronto, so we got to point out that there is a local angle to the band's origin story. Have a listen to this. A perfect song. That is the Toronto's own Cowboy Junkies with their cover of the Velvet Underground Sweet Jane. That song appears on their album, The Trinity Sessions. It's a record that Greg Gonzalez of Cigarettes After Sex has cited as like this massive life-changing influence on his entire approach to writing and recording. Reanna, this is a track from 36 years ago. Like, you know, Suzy's talking about crate digging, you know, which is to say Cigarettes After Sex are working with like this very like old school kind of aesthetic. Why is this band a bit embraced by Gen Z, you think?
It's fascinating. I've pondered over this frequently, right? Because Greg Gonzalez has like gone on the record to be like, my inspiration is Cowboy Junkies and Leslie Gore. You know, it's like, how does that connect with Gen Z, right? Yeah. But I think like part of it is connecting the vibery of their music with, you know, frankly, platforms like TikTok, you know, because TikTok and Instagram, social media, like they're built on young people romanticizing their life. You know, like capturing life in these little vignettes and then posting them to romanticize and reflect on. And because you're putting the rose-colored glasses on and looking at you know, your experiences like this, it suits music like Cigarettes After Sex, or rather the music suits, you know, scoring these moments in your life. And their music is very dreamy. It's very romantic, I think. You know, romance is front and center. And I think a lot of people connect with that romanticization. You know, it's like a Cigarettes After Sex song is made by the pedals, by the reverb, by the simplicity, you know, and that all culminates in a massive like romantic vibe. And you know, I keep saying vibe because without the vibe, the band wouldn't really succeed. You know what I mean? So I think that's why it's so big, because the vibe connects with like young people's penchant to like apply romance to everything in their lives.
First of all, we should say like the vibe is like not an accidental word here. Like they are truly an atmospheric band, which is to say they're a band that sort of like you exist within the general aura of the music that they create. Like that's what they're there for. There are pop acts that you listen to because you want to dance. This is not one of those acts. Like it's virtually impossible, I think, to sort of move your body to a Cigarettes After Sex song. Like that's not what the music is there for, which is why Reanna keeps saying words like vibes and vibery, which I feel I'm gonna credit you with coining. I'm just gonna say. Suzy, Cigarettes After Sex have had a lot of staying power because they've been a band that's been around for some time. But what's interesting is that the audience is growing. What's with the longevity, you think, when so many bands in the streaming era seem to sort of fade away so quickly?
I think it's just their versatility, you know, and they're very consistent. It's like I think Mazzy Star occupies the same place in a way. It's sad and sexy at the same time. People love that. I think
sad
that's
and
what
sexy
people
at the
really,
same time.
sad, sexy. People enjoy that about Cigarettes After Sex. Like they you know, they could open for Nick Cave, for example, but they could also open for Lana Del Rey, and that would make perfect sense. They have this mystery around them. They don't do videos, big glossy photo shoots. It's not really them. So they're able to occupy this, like, you know, nebulous space in music because they're not known for their personalities.
Right.
They're known for the emotion that they evoke.
I like, nor do I want to ever know them for their personalities. Like, there are bands where I'm like, please never do press, actually. It's better for our relationship, for my relationship to your music, if I never hear a word from you. Because if I have to, then I'll start thinking about, like, oh, I wonder what all the stuff that went into the music is, you know, and I sometimes you're just like not interested in that. Reanna, we've been saying, you know, how so much of the Cigarettes After Sex discography is all about the vibes, but Greg Gonzalez has talked a bit about the influence of another Canadian writer, which is Leonard Cohen, on his songwriting. Greg Gonzalez is not particularly afraid to get pretty sexually explicit. What do you make of Greg's approach to lyric writing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think his lyrics are for me. I don't really connect with them.
Okay.
But I do think people do connect with it because there's a clear like lack of nuance. You know, he speaks very directly, and if he speaks in metaphors, it's very direct metaphors that you can very clearly understand. You know, it reminds me of like Alex Turner from Arctic Monkeys, you know, where he's like, I want to be your vacuum cleaner. Like, sure, you know, I like, see it similar in the way that Greg Gonzalez writes lyrics, you know, like it's very clear, it's very direct, people can connect with it. And like, I think it resonates with young people because, you know, when I was in high school, right, like when I was younger, I listened to a lot of like folk punk, you know, like Midwest emo type vibe. And like, you know, all of those bands speak very directly in the same way, you know, where it's like, I am communicating my emotions. I am speaking directly about what is happening to me at this moment, about the object of my affection. So there's a tradition there, whether it's Lou Reed, whether it's modern baseball, you know, like it's something that's not, I think it doesn't connect with everyone, but I think anyone can synthesize something in that lyric and resonate with it, you know, and I think it connects with people because people want to be spoken to directly and they want to understand what they're hearing.
Okay, let me just quickly play some of what Cigarettes After Sex are up to right now.
So get in the waves, swim in your leather. I always will make it feel like you were the last one. So get in the waves, like it was the first time. And bless your heart.
From their brand new album, X's, that is Tejano Blue. Listen, the new Cigarettes After Sex album entered the Billboard charts at number 32, their highest ranking to date. Kind of coincides with this worldwide arena tour next month. They're not just selling out massive venues in North America. They've already sold out shows in Poland, in India, in Singapore, well into 2025. Suzy, this seems to be a pretty big moment for this band. In your opinion, does the record adequately match the size of the moment?
You know, again, I think that the new record is so consistent with their previous records that maybe sometimes that's what people want. You know, they want something that they can consistently fall back on.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that it's not enjoyable. Again, it's so funny because I hear this band and I just think of my time as a really jaded young punk, thinking that this was music that like basic people would play in their dorm rooms. But at the same time, I don't know, but romance. Yeah. What about romance? That's universal.
That's what the people want. That's what turns out. That's what the people want. Okay, Reanna, what's your vibe on this? Do you feel like this record sort of matches the size of their moment?
It's so funny because you say that they're headlining, you know, arenas everywhere around the world, and this really, I did not hear a peep about it until I was
sold out in so many different places.
Good for them.
Which is crazy. So you know, I find it interesting that like, you know, they have this massive appeal. Like this record is, you know, fueling this tour and everything, because you know it really didn't make a splash. And we also, you know, live in an era where like everything is so like anti-rock in a way. The fact that this is like, you know, 3 dudes and is ostensibly like, when you really look at it, like a rock band.
Fundamentally a rock band, yeah.
Pretty wild to me.
Yeah. I think that's something that for me to sit with the idea that like, hey, this moment in general pop music is not that friendly to rock. And then yet here you have Cigarettes After Sex selling out arenas across the world. That's kind of wild. I appreciate you guys being here. Reanna, Suzy, thank you for your time, you guys. Thank you.
Happy to be here.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Reanna Cruz and Suzy Exposito are freelance music journalists, both based in Los Angeles. Cigarettes After Sex come to Montreal on August 31st and then come to Toronto on September 1st. This album, X's, is out everywhere now. I'm Alamin Abdul Mahmoud. This is Commotion. Yesterday, we talked about how watching the 2024 Olympic Games can be a completely overwhelming experience, right? You have like these thousands of hours of streaming content available. You got all these athletes that are making their own TikTok videos. But if you need to slow down your brain, you can always tune in to this.
Still looking for our first wave here in round 3, heat 2. We haven't seen any of those super massive sets roll through. We've seen some medium-sized waves just before the horn blew.
We're just waiting. We're just waiting for our first big wave here for us. For a long time, people made jokes about how boring it is to watch golf or baseball on TV. But it wasn't really until the Summer Olympics that I realized that surfing, this incredible, this thrilling, super cool, death-defying sport, can kind of make for some pretty dull television, even when it's happening on the beautiful shores of Tahiti. So with the medal rounds getting underway today, we've got sports journalist Adam Skolnick here. He's going to talk about the challenges of turning surfing into edge-of-your-seat entertainment, let's say, and how that experience can be improved. Welcome back to the show, Adam. How's it going?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Listen, this is just the second time that surfing has been featured in the Olympics after debuting in Tokyo in 2021. What's at stake for the sport as it sort of enters 2024, you think?
Well, I think it's no secret that competitive surfing has always had a difficult time finding a mainstream audience. So on paper, the Olympics kind of present this opportunity to reach out to that audience that would help the sport grow. And but, you know, competitive surfing has always had trouble crossing over, which seems strange because it's such a huge part of popular culture. The sport is, you know, it's a huge part of the places that we all travel to now is a lot of times because of surfers that went there, you know, decades before. So it made a huge impact, but the sport itself, judging waves, is not made that major impact. And I think it's because it presents better in compilations. Like if you think about the 100-foot wave, which to me is the best of this new wave of sports documentary, especially in series form that has come out, including the Michael Jordan series. I put it above that. And, and so, and Endless Summer is still a classic. So ever since Endless Summer all the way through 100-foot wave, you can see how it presents so well in a film or in a television series. And you know, here we are in the Olympics, and you're seeing the lulls, which is true, right? You're like, that's what, you know, all the lulls are cut out in the compilations, but that's the way it is when you're doing a sport that relies on Mother Nature. You're going to have to deal with the fact that this is how there is a slowness to the action.
See, I feel bad because like we were gonna have this conversation about surfing and how it can kind of make for pretty dull television. And then this week, something happened that made headlines basically everywhere. I want to play you just this clip real quick.
And it's Gabriel Medina coming through, an absolute monster, and flies out victoriously. A beautiful, life-threatening wave.
Okay, so we saw this incredible clip, incredible photos that came out of this Brazilian surfer, Gabriel Medina. He basically looked like he was walking on air with his right index finger just pointing to the sky. His surfboard is just like floating behind him, suspended in midair. And you look at that and go like, that looks like the coolest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Talk to me about the impact of the photo, the way that people are talking about surfing after that photo came out.
Well, I think it's the most iconic photo so far from the games. I mean, that's my opinion, and I feel like that's validated by ESPN sharing it. The New York Times have shared it. You guys are sharing it. It's that is the type of moment that the World Surf League and all the surf brands are hoping for out of the Olympic Games. And part of it is Gabriel Medina is one of the great surfers of all time, and he has a showmanship that is there. And Jerome Brulé, who took the photograph, knows Gabriel's tendencies, knew what he was going to do, and so he was set up perfectly. He knew he was going to kick out after that amazing wave. And then the third thing is it's an organic expression of how he felt from having the best wave of the competition so far, this monster that came in, and he dropped in, and he's standing straight up, and it's still double overhead in the barrel, the hollow part of the wave. And he had the ride that everybody has been hoping to see, and so that natural expression comes out of that. It's not fake. It's authentic, and that's what surfers are there for. That feeling.
But they say, like, this is the wild thing, is that, like, the photo goes around and everyone goes, wow, surfing must be the most thrilling sport to watch on television. But as you heard sort of from the earlier clip that we played, it's a lot of waiting. It's a lot of sort of waiting around. Medium-sized waves are just not going to do the trick for the riders. So talk to me a bit more about the experience of watching live Olympic surfing on television, because I can imagine those announcers have a bit of a challenge filling space until such time that a wave can actually arrive.
See, when I heard that Colin Jost was going to be a part of the broadcast, I thought that's what they got him for, to fill the space. But I'm not, I've been watching it on Peacock, and he's not showing up on Peacock. You're just watching the raw kind of broadcast with the commentators. Because
he's like the SNL guy. You'd think he would make this like thrilling time to watch, but no, he's not there for you. You're just watching a bunch of people bobbing in the water.
Well, right, and so it looks that way, right? But I think part of the problem is there's two issues. One is this wave is about getting those barrels, getting inside the wave and then spitting out. That's what you're going to get the big scores for. And so the problem with that is the athleticism is kind of unseen. Right. There is a lot of athleticism. There is a lot of strategy. They're reading the water at all times. They're not just bobbing. They're paddling, trying to get in position. If you have first priority, then you have to guard against your opponent snaking a wave.
You know that. But me watching television, I'm like, I don't know that they're reading the water. All I know is that they're waiting for a wave. Like that's what I mean. Is like it can be sort of tough to sort of measure it up against, like, I don't know, like fencing, where you're like, oh, I know, I can see the dynamics of play. You know what I mean? How do you think surfing could be improved in that way?
It's a good point. I mean, the World Surf League has kind of produced packages about the athletes that they run during the lulls. They know that that's happening, and they run these packages. And for some reason, we're not seeing that, certainly not on the Peacock. The other thing is that what you could do is they could just decide to run every few days kind of a 1 hour package of what's happened in the heats. Like they do, the prime time that we're getting on NBC, you don't have to watch every gymnast do their thing. Right. You're just watching kind of the highlights that they piece together. Yeah. Why not do that for an hour for surfing? I'm hoping they do it. You never know. They might run it, but so far we haven't seen that. And so, and then they haven't planned for the lulls. So I agree with you that is an issue. And I think that's just choice in broadcast.
We got maybe a minute left here, but as people settle in today to watch the medal rounds, how would you recommend they get into, the right frame of mind to watch Olympic surfing?
Well, I think what you do is one of the most beautiful places on earth, Teopo, and so you could just turn it on, let it run, vibe with it. You just talked about cigarette after sex. This is the cigarettes after sex of Olympic sports, man. You just vibe with it. You let it happen. You let it roll, and then hopefully you get that iconic moment of Gabriel Medina just charging through a monster and having his celebration.
Adam, I'm gonna do exactly that. I'm gonna let it ride and just go, all right, I'm enjoying the scenery until such time that something happens. You know what my tell will be when announcers start to yell on the television. But in the meantime, Adam, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for your time, man. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, of course. Adam Skolnick is a sports journalist based in Los Angeles, and you are watching the Olympic surfing after listening to this conversation. If you still want to, I highly recommend that you do. Just try it out. You can stream it on CBC Gem. That is it for the show today. My name is Alamin Abdul Mahmoud. This show is called Commotion. By the way, you can find us on Instagram at CommotionCBC. You can also find us on YouTube, where you can watch this entire conversation happening. We'll be back tomorrow, and on tomorrow's show, we're going to be talking about Robert Downey Jr.'s return to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's a big deal. They parked a giant money truck in front of him to do it. I think we're going to talk about how Disney's trying to rescue Marvel from his slump. In the meantime, you have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.